I was 26 when it happened. 26 years old, standing in my childhood backyard with a piece of shiny wrapping paper in my hands, about to unwrap the gift that would destroy everything I thought I knew about my bloodline. About my name. About the woman who gave birth to me. You think your family has secrets? You think you know what betrayal feels like? Let me tell you something, you have absolutely no idea. Because the worst kind of betrayal isn't the one that happens in darkness. It's the one that happens in front of everyone you know, wrapped in laughter and mockery, served up like birthday cake while your neighbors and cousins watch you bleed. I didn't know that birthday would rewrite my entire bloodline. I didn't know that the DNA test my mother gave me, meant to humiliate me, meant to break me, would become the key that unlocked 30 years of her lies. Her fear. Her desperate, pathetic attempt to bury the truth so deep that even God himself couldn't dig it up. Fast forward 6 months. I'm sitting in an estate lawyer's office in Charleston, South Carolina. The kind of office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor, where the furniture costs more than most people's cars. My family walks in, confused, pale, their faces tight with anxiety. They don't know why they're there. They don't know what's coming. But I do. And before I tell you what happened in that room, before I show you what my mother saw when she walked through that door and realized her entire world was about to collapse, subscribe. You don't want to be the last to know how fast a family can turn on you. How quickly love can rot into something unrecognizable. How a single piece of paper can expose decades of carefully constructed lies. Because what I'm about to tell you isn't just my story. It's a warning. I showed up to that birthday party with hope. Can you believe that? Hope. Like some naive fool who still believed that family meant something. That blood was thicker than water. That my mother, despite everything, despite years of her cold silences and cutting remarks, might finally see me. Might finally love me the way mothers are supposed to love their daughters. The party was in our backyard in Savannah, Georgia. You know the kind. String lights hanging from the old oak tree. Folding tables covered in plastic checkered tablecloths. The smell of grilled burgers mixing with humid southern air. My cousins were there. Neighbors. Church friends. People I'd known my entire life. People who'd watched me grow up. People who thought they knew our family. My mother spent the entire afternoon cracking jokes. Passive-aggressive little digs dressed up as humor. Oh, there she is, finally gracing us with her presence. Must be nice to have such a flexible schedule. Each one landing like a small stone, building up until I could barely breathe under the weight of them. But I smiled. I laughed when I was supposed to laugh. I played the role of the grateful daughter because that's what you do, right? That's what they teach you. Smile through the pain. Don't make a scene. Don't embarrass the family. Then came the gifts. My aunt gave me a scented candle. My cousin gave me a gift card. Normal things. Safe things. Then my mother stood up, holding this beautifully wrapped box with a huge bow on top. Everyone got quiet, waiting. She had this smile on her face, not warm, not loving, but something else. Something sharp. I got you something special this year, she said, her voice carrying across the yard. Something I think we all need to see. I unwrapped it slowly, my stomach already twisting because I knew something was wrong. The way she was looking at me. The way some of the guests were shifting uncomfortably. The way the air felt suddenly thick and suffocating. It was a DNA test kit. For a moment, I just stared at it. My brain couldn't process what I was seeing. Why would she give me this? What did this mean? Then she laughed. Loud and harsh and cruel. Let's finally see who your real father is, she announced to everyone. Everyone. Maybe the mailman? Maybe that mechanic who used to work on our car. She was performing now, feeding off the awkward energy of the crowd. I've always wondered, you never quite looked like us. Some people laughed, nervous, uncomfortable laughter. Some went silent, their eyes dropping to their plates. My cousin Sarah looked horrified. Mrs. Patterson from next door suddenly became very interested in her drink. But my mother kept going. No, seriously, this will be fun. We can all find out together. Clear up that little mystery once and for all. I couldn't move. My hands were shaking, holding this box, this weapon she'd disguised as a gift. My throat closed up. My vision blurred. The string lights above me suddenly felt like they were closing in, suffocating me. I managed to mumble something about using the bathroom. I walked inside on legs that didn't feel like mine anymore, past the kitchen where my grandmother's old curtains still hung, down the hallway lined with family photos. Photos I was apparently never really supposed to be in, and locked myself in the bathroom. I sat on the edge of the tub and cried. Silent tears that burned my face and made my chest ache. Not the dramatic, sobbing kind of crying. The worst kind. The kind where you're so devastated, so completely broken, that your body doesn't even know how to express it. And I remembered something my grandmother told me before she died. She pulled me aside one day when I was about 14, after my mother had been particularly cruel about something trivial. She held my face in her weathered hands and said, "Baby girl, when people mock you, they're revealing their own wounds, not yours. Remember that." I didn't understand it then. But sitting on that bathroom floor, DNA test kit clutched in my trembling hands, something clicked. My mother wasn't mocking me out of spite. She was mocking me out of fear. She was terrified. But why? Why would a DNA test scare her? Unless she already knew what it would reveal. I made a vow in that bathroom. A quiet, internal vow that would reshape my entire life. I was done. Done begging for her love. Done trying to fit into a family that treated me like I was defective. Done letting her words define my worth. I wiped my face, fixed my makeup, and walked back out to that party with my head high. I thanked everyone for coming. I cut the cake. I played the role one last time. But inside, I was already planning my escape. 3 weeks later, I packed everything I owned into my beat-up Honda Civic and drove to Austin, Texas. No plan. No job lined up. Just a desperate need to get as far away from Savannah as possible without leaving the country. Austin felt like a different planet. The energy was different, younger, hungrier, full of people reinventing themselves. I felt anonymous there in a way that was both terrifying and liberating. Nobody knew my mother. Nobody knew the girl who got humiliated at her own birthday party. I could be anyone. Except I was broke. Painfully, desperately broke. I worked 2 jobs just to afford a studio apartment that barely fit a bed. During the day, I waited tables at a brunch spot downtown where tourists left decent tips. At night, I stocked shelves at a grocery store, coming home at midnight smelling like cardboard and disinfectant. I was exhausted. Lonely. Questioning every decision that brought me there. My mother called constantly those first few months. I'd see her name light up my phone, and my chest would tighten. Sometimes I'd answer. She'd be crying, saying I abandoned the family, asking why I was being so dramatic, insisting that it was just a joke, that I needed to stop being so sensitive. Other times she'd be angry. "You think you're better than us now? You think you can just run away and start over? You'll be back. You always come back." I blocked her number after that. The DNA test sat in my drawer unopened. I told myself I didn't care about the results. That it didn't matter who my biological father was because it wouldn't change anything. But every time I opened that drawer to grab socks or a phone charger, I'd see that box and feel this pull. This need to know. This anger at not knowing. But I was too scared. Too focused on survival to deal with another earth-shattering revelation. During those early months, I failed at everything. I applied for marketing jobs and got rejected. I tried to start a freelance graphic design business that went absolutely nowhere. I came within days of eviction twice. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, wondering if my mother was right. If I really was just running away. If I'd made a terrible mistake. But slowly, painfully slowly, things started to shift. I taught myself to code using free YouTube tutorials and library books. I learned about digital branding, social media strategy, web design. I spent every spare moment learning, building skills, creating a portfolio. My hands hurt from typing. My eyes burned from staring at screens. But I kept going because the alternative was going back to Savannah. Going back to being that humiliated girl in the backyard. And I would rather die than go back to being her. My first real client was a startup in Denver looking for someone to redesign their website. They paid me $800. $800 that felt like $8 million. I cried when the payment hit my account. I called Sarah, my cousin, the only family member I still talked to, and she cried too. After that, things started to build. Small victories that accumulated into momentum. Another client. Then another. Word-of-mouth referrals. A small reputation forming. I quit the grocery store job. Then the restaurant job. I started taking clients full-time. I stopped attending family events. Stopped responding to group texts. Stopped pretending I was still part of that world. I became a ghost to them, present only in their memories and their guilt. And that DNA test, still unopened, still sitting in my drawer like a bomb waiting to explode. But here's what I didn't tell anyone. I started receiving strange emails. Messages addressed to a different last name. Not my mother's maiden name, not the name I'd always known. They were usually spam, marketing emails, but the name kept appearing. Again and again, like the universe was trying to tell me something I wasn't ready to hear. I ignored them, deleted them, focused on building my business and my new life. I didn't know that unopened box would later expose everything my mother spent 30 years hiding. 2 years passed. 2 years of grinding, building, failing, learning, growing. 2 years of becoming someone I barely recognized, someone stronger, someone sharper, someone who didn't need anyone's approval to exist. I now run a digital branding agency in an office overlooking downtown Austin. Floor-to-ceiling windows showing the city sprawling beneath me. A team of 6 people who respect me, who listen when I speak, who don't question my worth. I drive a car that doesn't rattle when I hit 35 miles per hour. I live in an apartment with actual furniture, not hand-me-downs or sidewalk finds. I have money in savings. I have stability. I have power. The kind of power that comes from building something yourself. From surviving when everyone expected you to fail. 6 months ago, I won a major contract with a hospital network expanding across 3 states. The kind of contract that established agencies compete for. They chose me. My team. My vision. We're booked out for months. People wait to work with us. I was invited to speak on a tech panel in San Francisco about women in digital entrepreneurship. Me, the girl who used to cry in restaurant bathrooms during her break because she didn't know if she could make rent. But I still hadn't forgiven my family. Hadn't contacted them. Hadn't attended a single holiday or birthday or funeral. I watched from afar through Sarah's occasional updates, seeing the cracks forming. My mother's real estate business struggling. My father drinking more. The family dynamic shifting now that I wasn't there to be their punching bag. And I waited. I didn't know what I was waiting for exactly. Justice? Vindication? An apology that would never come? Then, on a Tuesday morning in March, a letter arrived. Not an email. An actual letter. Heavy paper. Professional letterhead. From a law firm in Charleston, South Carolina. Dear Ms. Redacted. You are requested to attend an estate meeting regarding family inheritance matters. Your presence is required at our Charleston office on April 15th at 2 p.m. Please contact our office to confirm attendance. Sincerely, Mitchell & Associates, Estate Law. I stared at that letter for 15 minutes. Estate meeting? Inheritance? From who? My grandmother had been dead for years, and her estate was settled long ago. My parents were still alive, broke and struggling, but alive. I called the number on the letterhead. The receptionist was polite but vague. I can't discuss details over the phone, but it's important that you attend. Extremely important. Something in her voice made my stomach drop. I booked the flight that same day. If you've ever been blindsided by family drama, if you've ever had that moment where everything you thought you knew gets turned inside out, stick around. And if you're not subscribed yet, don't be the only one left confused when the truth hits. Because what happened in that Charleston office rewrote my entire understanding of my own existence. While I was building my empire in Austin, my mother's world was collapsing. Sarah told me bits and pieces, though I pretended not to care. The real estate market crashed in their area. My mother's business, which she'd built over 20 years, started bleeding money. Properties weren't selling. Commissions dried up. Debt accumulated like storm clouds. She tried to hide it at first, the way she hid everything. Keeping up appearances. Designer handbags she bought on credit. Cars she couldn't afford. That huge house that was slowly falling apart because she couldn't keep up with repairs. Then her health started failing. Stress-induced, the doctors said. High blood pressure. Heart palpitations. She was only 53 but looked 70. Sarah sent me a photo once. I almost didn't recognize her. The woman who used to pride herself on her appearance, who never left the house without perfect makeup and styled hair, looked hollow. Defeated. Part of me felt satisfaction at that. The petty, wounded part that still remembered the birthday party. The years of mockery and belittlement. The casual cruelty she served up like it was love. But another part of me, a part one tried to ignore, felt something else. Not quite pity, but an awareness that her fall was coming from within. That she was being destroyed by her own secrets. Her own lies. 3 months before the letter arrived, my mother called me. I'd changed my number twice since leaving, but she always found a way. This time she'd gotten it from Sarah, who apologized profusely afterward. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. We need to talk. Her voice was different. Smaller. No edge to it. No performance. About what? I kept my voice cold. Professional. The voice I used with difficult clients. About everything. Please. I'm asking. Her voice cracked. I'm begging you. Why now? After 2 years of silence, why now? She was quiet for a long moment. I could hear her breathing, shaky and uneven. Because things are coming to light. Things I can't control anymore. And I need you to hear it from me first. My blood went cold. What things? Not over the phone. Please. Come home. Or meet me somewhere. Anywhere. I'll come to Austin if you want. We need to talk face to face. I hung up. But her words haunted me for weeks. Things are coming to light. What did that mean? What could possibly be worse than what she'd already done? Then the lawyer's letter arrived, and suddenly everything made sense. She knew. She'd always known. And now the truth was coming whether she wanted it to or not. The lawyer's office called again 2 days before the meeting. Ms. Redacted. Mr. Mitchell would like you to arrive 30 minutes early. Alone. There are some documents he needs to review with you privately before the family arrives. What family? I asked. Your mother and father have been asked to attend, as well as any siblings or close relatives. I don't have siblings. Never did. But I said okay. I said I'd be there. And I booked a hotel in Charleston, not one my family would know about or think to look for me at. I wasn't ready to see them yet. Not before I understood what was happening. The night before the meeting, I finally opened the DNA test. My hands were shaking as I swabbed my cheek. As I sealed the sample in its tube. As I registered it online and dropped it in the mail the next morning on my way to the lawyer's office. Whatever happened in that meeting, I wanted the truth. All of it. No more secrets. No more lies. No more being the punchline of someone else's joke. The lawyer's office was everything you'd imagine when you think of old Southern money. Historic building in downtown Charleston. The kind of place where they serve water in crystal glasses and the receptionist speaks in hushed, reverent tones like she's in a library or a church. I arrived 45 minutes early because I couldn't stand waiting at the hotel anymore. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out in the elevator. Mr. Mitchell was in his 60s, with silver hair and kind eyes that had seen too much family drama to be shocked by anything. He shook my hand and guided me into a conference room with windows overlooking the harbor. Sailboats drifted by. The sun was too bright. Everything felt surreal. Thank you for coming early, Ms. Redacted. Please sit. I sat. He placed 2 folders on the table between us. One was thick, stuffed with documents. The other was thin, just a few pages. I'm going to be direct with you because we don't have much time before your family arrives, and you deserve to understand the situation before facing them. He paused, studying my face. Are you aware that your mother had an extramarital affair approximately 27 years ago? The room tilted. No. Are you aware that the man you've known as your father is not your biological father? I couldn't breathe. No. He pushed the thin folder toward me. These are the results of a DNA test conducted 6 weeks ago as part of estate settlement procedures. Your biological father passed away 3 months ago. His name was Jonathan Whitmore. He was a philanthropist and businessman based in Charleston, worth approximately $43 million. I opened the folder with numb fingers. Pages of genetic markers. Percentages. Confirmation of paternity. 99.97% certainty. Mr. Whitmore never married. Never had other children. He left specific instructions in his will that if a biological child was ever confirmed, the entire estate would pass to that child. Mr. Mitchell's voice was gentle now. You are his sole heir. I stared at him. At the documents. At the boats outside the window that kept moving like the world hadn't just stopped spinning. My mother knew, I whispered. Yes. She's known since before you were born. Mr. Whitmore approached her several times over the years, wanting to meet you, to be part of your life. She refused. Threatened to expose him publicly if he didn't stay away. He honored her wishes, but he never stopped trying to find a way to provide for you. The birthday party. The DNA test. The mocking. She wasn't trying to humiliate me. She was trying to scare me. To make sure I never took that test. Never discovered the truth. But her cruelty backfired. Because I left. And in leaving, I broke the chain of her control. When does my family arrive? My voice didn't sound like mine. 15 minutes. They believe they're here to discuss your grandmother's estate. A small matter we fabricated to ensure attendance. They don't know about Mr. Whitmore. They don't know about the inheritance. He leaned forward. How would you like to handle this? I looked at that folder. At the life my biological father had lived. At the money he'd left me. At the truth my mother had buried for 27 years. And I made a decision. I want to be sitting at that table when they walk in. I want them to see me first. Before you explain anything. I want to watch their faces. Mr. Mitchell nodded slowly. That can be arranged. He left to prepare. I moved to the head of the conference table. Adjusted my chair. Folded my hands. And waited. 10 minutes later, I heard voices in the hallway. My mother's voice, tight with anxiety. My father, not my father, I had to remind myself, speaking in low tones. Sarah's voice, confused, asking what this was about. The door opened. My mother walked in first. Her eyes scanned the room, looking for the lawyer. Then she saw me. Every drop of color drained from her face. She stopped so abruptly that my father almost walked into her. Her mouth opened but no sound came out. Hello, Mom, I said quietly. Sarah gasped. Oh my God, you're here. I didn't know you'd. Sit down, I said. Not angry. Not emotional. Just empty. All of you. Sit. They sat. My mother's hands were shaking. She couldn't look at me, couldn't meet my eyes. She knew. In that moment, she knew exactly why we were there. Mr. Mitchell entered and closed the door. He didn't sit. He stood at the front of the room like a professor about to deliver a lecture that would change everything. Thank you all for coming. I've asked you here today to discuss a matter of estate settlement involving Ms. Redacted. He nodded at me. 3 months ago, Jonathan Whitmore passed away. His will contained specific provisions regarding the location and notification of any biological children. My father, the man I'd called father for 26 years, looked confused. Who's Jonathan Whitmore? Mr. Mitchell opened the thick folder. A DNA test was conducted as part of estate verification procedures. The results confirm that Ms. Redacted is Mr. Whitmore's biological daughter. As his sole heir, she inherits his entire estate, valued at approximately $43 million. Silence. Complete, suffocating silence. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. My father's face went white. He turned slowly to look at my mother, who had started crying, silent tears streaming down her face, her shoulders shaking. You knew, he said to her. Not a question. A statement. She nodded, still unable to speak. You knew the whole time. For 27 years, you let me raise another man's child, and you never told me. I'm sorry, she choked out. I'm so sorry. The birthday party, I said quietly. Everyone turned to look at me. The DNA test you gave me. That wasn't cruelty. That was fear, wasn't it? You were terrified I'd actually take it. Terrified the truth would come out. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and in her eyes I saw everything. The guilt. The shame. The desperate, decades-long fight to keep her secret buried. So you tried to humiliate me instead, I continued. My voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that comes before a storm. You thought if you made it public, made it shameful, made it a joke, I'd never actually go through with it. You thought you could control me through mockery the way you'd controlled me my whole life. I didn't know what else to do, she sobbed. He kept threatening to come forward. To tell you. To ruin everything. And I couldn't let that happen. So you ruined me instead. I stood up. Walked around the table slowly. You let me grow up thinking I was defective. That something was wrong with me. That I deserved your coldness and your cruelty. You let me believe for 26 years that I was the problem. I'm sorry, she kept saying. I'm so sorry. But her apologies meant nothing. They were just words. Just more attempts to control the narrative, to make herself the victim of circumstances, rather than the architect of her own lies. I turned to the man who'd raised me, who'd been at every school play even though I now knew I wasn't his, who'd taught me to ride a bike and change a tire and stand up for myself. Did you know? I asked him. He shook his head, tears streaming down his face. I swear to God, I had no idea. I always thought you were mine. And somehow that made it worse. That he'd loved me without knowing. That his love was real while hers had always been tainted by fear. Mr. Mitchell cleared his throat. There are documents to sign. Estate transfer paperwork. The process will take several weeks to complete, but the inheritance is yours, Ms. Redacted. What you choose to do with it is entirely your decision. My family sat in silence, watching me. Waiting. I could see the calculations happening behind my mother's eyes. The desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, I would be merciful. That I would save her the way she never saved me. Part of me wanted revenge. Wanted to watch her lose everything while I gained everything. Wanted to make her feel the way she'd made me feel in that backyard. Small, exposed, humiliated. But I thought about my grandmother. About what she'd said. When people mock you, they're revealing their own wounds. My mother was wounded. Had been wounded long before I was born. And she'd spent 27 years trying to hide that wound by inflicting new ones on everyone around her. I didn't want to be like her. Didn't want to carry that poison forward. But I also couldn't forgive her. Couldn't pretend that money or time would heal what she'd broken. I'll help you, I said finally. My mother's head snapped up, hope flooding her features. But not directly. Mr. Mitchell will set up a trust. It will cover your essential expenses, mortgage, medical bills, basic living costs. Nothing excessive. Nothing comfortable. Just enough to survive. That's incredibly generous, my father said quietly. I looked at him. That's for you. Not for her. You didn't deserve to be lied to for 27 years. Then I turned to my mother. But you and I, we're done. I don't want phone calls. I don't want letters. I don't want tearful reconciliation scenes or deathbed confessions. You made your choices. You get to live with them. And I get to live without you. She started to protest, reaching across the table. Please, you don't understand. I understand perfectly, I said. You were scared and selfish and cruel. You sacrificed me to protect yourself. And now you're reaping what you sowed. I gathered my papers, my copy of the will, my proof of inheritance. Mr. Mitchell handed me his card. My office will handle everything. You don't have to see them again if you don't want to. I don't, I said. Sarah followed me into the hallway. Can I still call you? She asked, crying. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I hugged her. You can call me. You're the only one. She nodded, sobbing into my shoulder. I'm so sorry. For all of it. For every birthday and holiday where she treated you like you were less than. I should have said something. Should have stood up for you. It's not your responsibility to fix other people's cruelty, I told her. But thank you. I walked out of that office into the Charleston sunshine. The harbor was beautiful. The air smelled like salt and history. And for the first time in my entire life, I felt free. Not because of the money, though that didn't hurt, but because I was finally, truly, completely free of the need for my mother's approval. Her love. Her validation. I didn't need it anymore. I didn't want it anymore. And that freedom was worth more than $43 million. We've all seen families fall apart over secrets like this. We've all wondered what we would do in that situation. Would we be merciful or vengeful? Would we choose peace or justice? I chose something in between. I chose integrity without doormat behavior. Boundaries without cruelty. Freedom without destruction. But let me ask you something. What would you have done in my place? 6 months have passed since that meeting in Charleston. The estate transfer is complete. I've invested most of it, donated a significant portion to organizations supporting children from broken homes, and kept enough to expand my business and live comfortably without excess. My mother tried to contact me once, about 3 months ago. She sent a letter, not email, actual handwritten letter, telling me she'd started therapy, that she was working through her trauma, that she hoped one day I'd give her another chance. I didn't respond. Maybe that makes me cold. Maybe that makes me unforgiving. But I learned something crucial through all of this. You don't owe anyone access to your life, even if they gave you life. Especially if they spent that life making you feel like you didn't deserve it. The DNA test kit I ordered, the one I finally took the night before the Charleston meeting, came back confirming everything Mr. Mitchell had told me. I saved it with all the other documents in a safety deposit box. Not because I needed more proof, but because I wanted a record. A tangible piece of evidence that I wasn't crazy. That the life I remembered living, the coldness, the mockery, the feeling of never being quite good enough, had been built on a foundation of lies. I found out more about Jonathan Whitmore, my biological father, the man whose DNA I carry but whose face I never saw. He was a quiet philanthropist, never sought publicity, donated millions to education programs, children's hospitals, scholarship funds. He never married after my mother rejected him, never had other children. Sarah helped me dig through old records and found letters he'd written to my mother over the years. Letters begging to meet me, offering to support us financially, promising to never interfere with her marriage if she'd just let him know his daughter. She refused every time, threatened him with exposure, with scandal, with destroying his reputation if he didn't stay away. And he honored her wishes because he loved her once, or maybe because he was just a good man who didn't want to cause more pain. But he never forgot me. Every year on my birthday, he donated to a scholarship fund in my name, a name I never knew about, a fund I never benefited from because I didn't know it existed. He created it anyway, hoping that one day I'd learn the truth and see that he'd been thinking of me all along. That breaks my heart in ways I can't fully articulate. That I had a father who wanted me, who chose me, who tried to be present in the only way my mother would allow. And I never got to meet him, never got to say thank you, never got to hear his voice or hug him or ask him why he didn't fight harder. But I also understand that he was protecting me, that he knew my mother well enough to know that exposing the truth while I was young would only hurt me more. So he waited, planned, made sure that even after death he could provide for me. That's a kind of love I never experienced from the woman who raised me. My relationship with the man I called father, the man who raised me, is complicated now. We talk occasionally. Awkward phone calls where we both skirt around the enormous betrayal at the center of our history. He says he doesn't blame me, that none of this was my fault, that he still considers me his daughter. I don't know how to feel about that. Part of me is grateful. Part of me resents him for not seeing what my mother was doing all those years, for not protecting me from her cruelty. But mostly I just feel sad for him, for the life he thought he had, for the marriage he believed in, for the daughter he loved without knowing she wasn't biologically his. People ask me if I regret leaving Savannah, if I wish I'd handled things differently, if I would change anything. I tell them no. Every humiliation, every rejection, every moment of pain pushed me toward the person I needed to become. The person who could stand in that Charleston office and choose integrity over revenge. Who could build a life on my own terms instead of according to someone else's script. That DNA test my mother gave me, meant to shame me, meant to keep me small and controlled, became the key to my liberation. She thought she was mocking me. She thought she was putting me in my place. Instead, she freed me. And isn't that the most delicious kind of irony? That her weapon became my shield? That her cruelty became my catalyst? I still think about that birthday party sometimes. Still feel the phantom ache of that humiliation. The laughter. The mockery. The way I hid in the bathroom trying to hold myself together. But I don't think about it with shame anymore. I think about it as the moment everything changed. The moment I realized I deserved better. The moment I stopped waiting for permission to exist. My grandmother was right. When people mock you, they're revealing their own wounds. My mother's wound was so deep, so infected with fear and guilt, that it poisoned everything around her, including me. But wounds don't have to be permanent. They can heal if you're willing to do the work, to leave behind the people who keep them open, to build a life that doesn't require their approval. That's what I did. That's what I'm still doing. And if you're listening to this and thinking about your own family wounds, your own betrayals, your own moments of humiliation, I want you to know something. You deserve better. You deserve honesty. You deserve love that doesn't come with conditions or cruelty. You deserve a life where you're not the punchline of someone else's joke. And if you have to burn bridges to get there, burn them. Some.